They hate me. I can see it in their eyes. They hate me, all of them, she whispered. Who hates you? He was getting impatient with her repeating the same verse repeatedly. Everyone does. They all hate me, despite everything I do. They don't like me. Why can't anyone like me? Why can't they see my strengths? The conversation he had earlier with a lady was replaying in his mind as he tried to calm down under the harmony of the relaxing music. He came to this concert to relieve himself a bit from the daily burden of his job, but he could not get rid of his exchange with one of his patients. You said you tried everything. What did you do? He asked her. She took a moment to reply and said, Nothing. I can't do anything. Sometimes I am too weak. And it seems like I don't have the physical strength, and sometimes I don't feel myself, as if they tricked me, or even worse, they hid me somewhere, from where I cannot return, no matter how hard I try. She was speaking in a trance and was annoying the hell out of her psychologist. He loved his job, but he hated weak women, and she was weak, at least according to him. I don't feel an ounce of happiness inside me. Her lips quivered as she continued, as if I have no right to be happy anymore. Maybe you need to try to be braver. Try a bit harder to feel the emotion, he replied. I am brave, and I am trying. But sometimes only trying isn't enough, is it? She wasn't looking into his eyes. Yeah, I can see that, he thought as the pencil in his hand was on the verge of splitting into two. Rolling the same pencil between his fingers, he sat down in the front row. There was an expensive-looking fancy piano at the bottom of the stage. Its pristine curved hardwood was shining under the bright chandelier. This masterpiece was indeed the center of attention of the whole theater, until someone else took its place, until she came into view. The charm of the majestic instrument began to fade as she approached the grand piano. Dressed in a knee-length white frock with her hair pinned on the top in a bun, she looked like an angel descending directly from the heavens. She ran a delicate finger across the curved body of hardwood, as if it were rare and vulnerable. He knew that this piano's heart was made from the same red spruce trees used for crafting Stradivari's violin. Yet it looked less valuable in front of the lady who was about to play it. Am I annoying you? She asked, somehow noticed his lack of interest in her conversation, and asked, No, you're not annoying me, he deliberately lied. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was making you bored with my non-stop chanting. She showed her concern. No, you're not. He suppressed a yawn. You are just making me angry with your weakness. Why can't you take a stand for yourself? You're not a child anymore. He could only think of that. Eden Smith was a successful psychologist who lived and practiced in Los Angeles for the past 20 years. Shayla was his patient who was going through a rough time. She annoyed him with her hopelessness. At first, he made a tremendous effort to cope with the irritation, but all in vain. Then his fury became visible in his expressions. It wasn't normal for him to loathe his patients, but he couldn't help himself in her case. According to him, Shayla was a typical fragile woman. They were not only nervous, weak, dependent, and less adapted to life, but it was also her fault. Because she had been going through hard times for the past 40 years, the psychologist believed that her weak character caused her failures in her personal life, and it was in her hand to switch these feelings. All the sessions he had with her left him more exhausted than ever, so he decided to alleviate his nerves by attending a concert. But he wasn't prepared for what life was about to unfold for him. The artist standing beside the piano turned and faced the audience. Eden felt astonished as he realized that the face he had been trying to get rid of all evening was standing in the middle of the stage. Shayla stood there, surrounded by spotlights, looking perfect in her attire. Yet she seemed feeble, or it was his imagination. She took her position behind the keys and closed her eyes as her fingers touched the cold surface. Inhaling a deep breath, she fingered through the slow-building start of Hate by Lucas King. As the composition changed, the tempo grew into a heavier and more aggressive tone. Every muscle in her body was engrossed in it. Her hips swayed, her head rocked, and her fingers did wonders on the keys. It looked like she was possessed by acoustics. He was amazed. Seeing her consumed in her music and generating a song with this perfection shocked him. He listened in fascination as beautiful music flowed from under the fluttering hands of this lady. The delightful lady he failed to judge. The majestic composition propelled her to the top note as she banged her hands along the keys. She was wrestling with the piano and testing its limit, and somehow she was pushing her limits too. Her face was mournful, her lips were compressed together, and her lush hair pinned high gave some loose strands to cover her face. She was stunning when she played the beautiful music. I have been through a lot. I think I will never reach where I want to go. She started with confusion. Where do you want to go? Failing miserably at hiding his irritation, Eden asked her. I don't know. This is the actual problem, that I don't know. Shayla shrugged her shoulders. Then who knows, if not you? He asked politely. Don't know. There are a lot of places I want to visit, a lot of things, titles, awards I want to get, but I don't have the strength to walk a step towards them. The things she said earlier in the sessions made sense. He understood her better while sitting in front of the piano rather than in his office. Her music displayed her doubts, hopelessness, and misconceptions all together. Do you think I will ever get what I want? She asked with the hope of hearing yes in reply. He saw this hope in her eyes. Do you think I will achieve what I crave? Eden nodded his head in disagreement and said, No, certainly not with this attitude of yours. It is a big no. You will never be able to achieve your goals. You will never see an ounce of happiness with this attitude. He burst her bubble of hope and brought her out of her daydreaming. She remained silent for a whole minute. I kept looking at the floor. The dirt on the mat was making fun of her. And then she whispered, That was rude. Shayla nodded her head. That was rude of you to say this. I said what I saw, he defended his hate comment. Then you saw it wrong. I'm a little misguided now, but I know I will reach there, or I will never reach there. She was indeed trying to reach somewhere. It was evident by her restlessness. However, it was uncertain from her expression if she had reached her destination or not. She was not misguided as she claimed to be. Instead, she was not guided at all. And Eden felt ashamed of himself for not providing her with anything helpful. He scratched a finger down his whiskered throat and yanked on the collar behind his tie so he could breathe easily. He saw her as a weak woman who was depressed, unbalanced, and an infantile woman. He kept blaming her childishness, and non-seriousness for her discomfort. But he did not spend a moment understanding her essence. Eden was repenting that despite the troubles in her life, he never appreciated her strong personality. He never told her that everything would turn out to be okay. His misconception blindfolded him. He forgot that outside of his office, there is a life that this weak, thin woman somehow copes with and has been living for more than 40 years. He never thought she could give such a brilliant performance that would leave hundreds of people in complete awe. Sitting in a concert, he realized a life lesson that nobody knows anymore. Either they evaluate only what they want to see, or what is available for them to consume. He learned that in our life, we do not always look attractive, successful, or confident all the time. We possess different powers and abilities that others cannot see. People only look a little bit in the crack of their life and jump to conclusions. They get blindfolded by their rush and then repent later. And he didn't think about who she was in this life. Then the thought of getting to know her better crossed his mind and left him baffled. He didn't realize that love had happened to him. And not just any love, the kind that the French call sunstroke. It happens unexpectedly and leaves you with nothing but a burn. He suddenly felt a surge of happiness seeping inside of him at the thought, but it soon transformed into discontentment as he remembered the last words of Shayla. You never really tried to understand me, right? She asked him while looking into his eyes for the first time. What made you think that? Eden went into defensive mode and countered her with a question. You never asked me why I felt such things. I don't remember you showing interest in any of my hobbies. Not that I have many, but you should have at least inquired about them. She rested her back against the comforter and kept asking him questions he had no answers to. You said I would never reach there. Maybe you are right or maybe you are wrong. But the way you said that wasn't ethical at all. She accused him of non-professionalism, to which Eden had no answers. He knew she was right, but he didn't let his conscience take over his pride. You are wrong, he argued in a meek tone. We both know who is wrong, Mr. Smith. Thank you for your time. I will not say it was a nice meeting with you, because it wasn't, and she left. Eden replayed her last sentences repeatedly in his mind and saw her fingers easing down the keys. She was reaching the end of her music. The audience was getting ready to stand in their seats to appreciate her. They were about to stand for the woman he labeled weak and found irritating. He realized that people hold the power to reveal what they want you to see and hiding what they don't feel like sharing. They may be confused or weak at one thing and at the same time be a master of the other. He failed himself when he judged a book by its cover. He should have asked her about things that made her strong. He should have asked her what she does outside of her room. Where does she want to go? What does she want to achieve? It was the only way to know her better. It was the only way of soothing the burning sensation in his heart. And this is how fate played him. This is how karma worked. He fell in love with the woman he should have helped.